Okay, for those of you returning to the channel, welcome back, and for those of you that are new here, that have just stumbled upon this video, then thank you for joining me, and welcome to my spoiler-free review of supernatural horror Good Boy, written and directed by Ben Leonberg. I've been really looking forward to this movie. I only discovered about its existence about a month ago, and I just fell in love with the concept of, the idea behind this story, telling a haunted house story through the perspective of a dog. It has so much potential if executed right, and it would be quite a challenge anyway, I feel, to sort of bring a story like this purely based through the perspective of a dog to life in a way that can keep an audience engaged, remain engaged with its story, because you're not relying on really sort of the human aspect of it. So yeah, Good Boy. The story follows a Todd who relocates from New York City to his late grandfather's remote family home, bringing along his devoted dog, Indy. As Todd's health deteriorates and unsettling events begin to occur inside the house, Indy starts sensing a supernatural presence invisible to humans. As dark forces close in, the loyal dog becomes the only one able to perceive what is happening and is forced to confront a malevolent entity tormenting both Indy and his best friend Todd. So first of all, I just have to talk about the look of this movie. I adored the look of this film. I think they did a wonderful job at capturing this kind of very retro 80s supernatural look through the cinematography, and I just loved how certain scenes and moments were framed, really sort of immersing you into the perspective of this dog, Indy, and sort of really kind of giving us a different perspective on witnessing this haunted house story just unfold. I think, like I said, this could be quite challenging to sort of really kind of keep the viewer engaged due to us really sort of seeing this story unfold through the perspective of a dog. But I think they do a really great job at achieving that through how the camera is used and the story in which they are telling you, which is a very tragic story. And I feel like for me, even though, this is a supernatural horror, I feel like it's the more sort of emotional story here between Indy and his owner, his best friend Todd, that I found sort of to be the most powerful aspect of this movie. Like, don't get me wrong, this movie gave me chills in certain moments, and again, a lot of that is down to sort of the use of the lighting and shadows. I just absolutely loved how they used shadows within this movie, and very, very little CGI, but just sort of how they used shadows and how the camera would you'd have these kind of wide shots of sort of how the camera would focus on a sort of a certain corner of a room, and it would take me back to being a kid again when I was afraid of the dark, and how my imagination would just sort of, kind of bring, how it would just come to life, and I would sort of imagine seeing these sort of silhouettes or shadows of something forming in the darkness, and I think the movie does a really good job of kind of bringing that to life, and it did. In moments, it gave me chills, it gave me goosebumps. And so, through the cinematography, through the light, through how the camera is used, the use of shadows and how shadows sort of come to life within this movie, I feel like thematically it worked to bring to life a much more tragic aspect of this story in a way that just swallowed me up emotionally. And now, this is not a spoiler. I don't think it's a spoiler. I wouldn't consider this a spoiler, because it's not identical to the movie that I'm about to sort of compare it to. But it kind of reminded me of it, but I don't feel like it's going to give anything away. And that is The Babadook. Now, The Babadook is one of my favourite horror movies. I absolutely adore that movie. And there's something about Good Boy in sort of what they are exploring through the story and how the story evolves right up into the climax that reminded me of Babadook. I don't feel like Good Boy is quite as successful at bringing to life that kind of the intensity when it came to the horror and that kind of, building that emotional momentum as they did with Babadook. But it's definitely there. And it definitely, you know, it left an impact. I mean, the film, for me, you know, it lands a punch. It lands an emotional punch. But it wasn't quite as successful as they were sort of bringing that aspect of the movie to life as they were with The Babadook. But it definitely reminded me of that movie in what they were exploring here thematically. So as a result, I still found the experience to be emotionally powerful. I love this movie. And the more I thought about it, coming from this, you know, after watching the film, coming from the screening, talking about it with the person that I watched the movie with, I've just found myself just admiring it the more I think about it. Because of what they managed to achieve with telling this story, I think the runtime is perfect. And I just feel like what they explored with this movie, with the themes, like, I can't say too much because this is spoiler free, but I just think they did a wonderful job here. And, you know, it's not a perfect experience, and I do have minor issues throughout the movie which kind of really stop it from, say, being as emotionally powerful or as impactful and as effective with the horror, like movies like The Babadook, for example, where, you know, it doesn't quite reach those heights, but it's almost there. But there are things for me that kind of just stopped it. Like, for example, it does kind of lack that emotional momentum. Like, it's there, and it is emotionally powerful. Like, there is a moment in the third act where it caught me, it hit me emotionally, and I teared up. You know, this was an experience that was tinged with this emotional tragicness. Like, it's a very tragic experience, and it stayed with me. It's still, you know, it's still with me. I watched the movie on Tuesday night, and it has stayed with me. But I did have issues with it, and sort of the major issue, or my major gripe with this movie, was the human element. It was the dialogue and the delivery of the dialogue. I just felt like it was just a little too wooden. It kind of lacked a sort of an emotional depth there, and a sort of like a humanity, you could say, when it came to the dialogue. And from one perspective, I get it, because, you know, our focus here, you know, is seeing or witnessing these events unfold through the perspective of a dog. And maybe, you know, that was sort of the intention behind the writing, but it just didn't quite work for me, and it kind of resulted in that lack of an emotional connection there, or depth between dog and human, and with the story that is occurring with the human character, Todd. And I felt like, you know, that, you know, it's just as an important element to this story as it is the dog. But the dialogue, and especially the delivery of the dialogue from the actors, for me, it felt just a little too wooden. It was lacking this kind of depth. It just didn't feel quite natural. And at times it just felt like someone was sort of reading from a script. And that could very well just be me, but that was sort of the major issue that I had with the movie. At the same time, it didn't take me out at all, because I was immersed, I was engaged, I was always emotionally compelled by what was occurring through, you know, this dog's perspective, and how Indy's relationship with his best friend Todd, and how that was sort of affected as they sort of witnessed these paranormal or these supernatural forces torment them in this house. And I was, like I said, emotionally compelled by this story, but there was that issue that I did have with its writing, where I felt like it didn't quite work for me. This was an original experience. And I admired it for that. It's a very ambitious story to tell. To tell a story like this through the perspective of the dog, and I think the performance of the dog, which we have to talk about here, is incredible. Like, I could not get over sort of... It's quite funny, actually, because the human element of this movie, and, you know, we do see the human element come to life through the perspective of the dog, so you don't really see the face of the human characters in this movie, which I liked, but it was just that dialogue, what they are saying in the background. It just didn't quite work for me. But when it came to the performance of this dog, I was like, wow. It's the performance as well. It's not just how this movie is shot and the look of it, but it's the performance of the dog that kind of really it allowed me anyway to buy into this. That sells the horror, that sells those moments where, it gave me chills. And it's not just aided by the use of the camera and the shadows and the lighting and all of that, and sort of how the movie kind of allows you to use your imagination, but it is soaked through the performance of this dog, Indy. It's the performance of this dog and how the dog plays a part in the story that just elevates that emotional current, that emotional power, the emotional impact of this movie. And so even though it kind of, in some ways, lacks, it's a little bit clunky perhaps with that emotional momentum. Like, this is a slow burn, and I think for the most part it works. It is a little clunky with that emotional momentum, but I just couldn't help but be swallowed up within this journey. And then when you get that third act, when you get the climax, it is like, yeah, it's powerful and it stays with you. And the more you think about it, like, this is an experience that I have to revisit. It's, like I said, the runtime makes it perfect. And I just feel like this is an experience that I'm going to get more out of the more I watch it. And I think it's going to become one of those experiences that becomes incredibly more powerful. That emotional connection between dog and master and how that journey plays out doesn't always retain this emotional momentum or energy that is consistent, but still manage to land a punch within its final moments, and one that evoked tears. I think they do a wonderful job at bringing this world, this story to life through the cinematography in a way that kind of just swallows you up. It immerses you, and you can at times buy into sort of the moments of horror, and a lot of that is aided by the use of shadows and lighting. I think they were incredibly clever in sort of how they approached bringing sort of the entity to life and sort of how that evolves into the third act. I just think it was beautifully done. I loved the movie, but it's not a perfect one. It's one of those movies where I come out and it's like, yes, I had issues with it, but due to the ambition and what they managed to pull off here, just the originality behind it, I just think they did an incredible job technically, and the story is a powerful one. What they are exploring here thematically, which doesn't quite click, until, well, for me anyway, it didn't quite click until what I thought they were, or what I felt they were sort of exploring here, until sort of the second act going into the third act. And when it did click, it just hit me hard. So this is one of those experiences for me that it's not perfect. I had issues with certain elements of it, but overall, with those issues that I've already mentioned, it still managed to swallow me up emotionally. This was an emotionally compelling film, and once it really sort of came together, like I said, this is a slow burn, but please, bear with it, because once it all sort of starts to fall into place, it just knocked me off my feet. It knocked the air out of me, and I just found it to be, like I said, this was much more of an emotionally tragic experience than a scary one. Like, there are moments that gave me chills, but for me it was more of the story between Indy and his best friend Todd, and how that supernatural element plays into that. And it did, even though it's not identical, it did somewhat remind me of Babadook. And I just, like I said, I fell in love with this film, its ambition, the originality, and what they managed to just achieve here with this story. It's a film that I loved with flaws. It's not perfect, but that's why I'm giving Good Boy the grade that I'm going to give it. So yeah, enough rambling from me. They are my thoughts on Good Boy, and I will be giving Good Boy they are my thoughts on Good Boy, but what did you guys think? Have you seen it yet? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you agree or disagree with anything I said? Then please let me know in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. There's still quite a few movies that I need to catch. You got Him, which I've yet to catch. It's been a hectic week when it comes to, real life reality, having to work and all of that. But I'm still hoping to catch Him so I can share my thoughts with you all on that movie. As well as you've got Tron Ares releasing tomorrow, which I'm looking forward to because I'm a big fan of the original movie and I was quite impressed with its sequel, Legacy. So I am looking forward to Tron Ares. I'm trying to keep away from the reactions at the minute, but I've caught a couple and it just seems to be getting... It seems to be getting an okay reaction at the moment. And then I just want to say another massive thank you to everyone that has supported the channel, to the new subscribers. It means the world to me that so many of you already do want to follow just some random Welsh geek ramble on about film and TV. But I absolutely love doing this, and your support means the world to me. Those that, whenever you like my videos or comment, it does. And there is so much that I have planned for this channel. I'm really excited sort of for the future of the channel and where I want to go and sort of what I want to do, and I can't do that without your support. And yeah, it will always overwhelm me that so many of you do want to follow me on this journey. So yeah, that's enough from me for now. Thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll be catching you guys soon.